went into the service weighing 129 pounds. By that time, I weighed about 140. There was most of them were young, and they were getting us ready. Well, when we finished basic training there, we didn't know for sure whether we were going east or west, whether we were going to the South Pacific, but we had guessed from what we were doing, we were going to Germany. We shipped up to New York, port of embarkation there, and we boarded the unit I was with. Now, we did not have a headquarters, had not given us a company name yet. We were just reserves. We boarded the New Amsterdam and set sail for the war zone. There, as I mentioned before, there were 5,000 troops on the New Amsterdam and 1,000 people to man it. It was a Dutch ship manned by the English carrying American soldiers. Human interest story here. My name starts with W. It seemed like they did everything in alphabetical order. I was always bringing up the rear. So when they placed us on the ship, there were 5 decks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. We were down in the 5th deck, and our bed was a hammock swung from the ceiling, which was low, and we were down sleeping or trying to sleep in a swinging hammock. Right next to me was a young man by the name of Wood. To show how dedicated, I've used this story in dedication to show how dedicated this young man was. He had a baseball glove and a baseball, and I made friends with him, and I said, "What's due?" He said, "This glove is my life." When I go to the friend to the front, this baseball and glove is going with me. He said, "I've been drafted by the St. Louis big league baseball team, and I've spent my life from the time I entered high school getting ready to play big league baseball." And he said, "I'm determined I'm going to make it. This is the inspiration that I have." When we landed at Glasgow, Scotland, we had taken the northern route. They thought they were away, and this New Amsterdam ship was well fortified with guns, and they had what they called depth charges. And one day or night, we felt that big ship rocked like everything, and the word finally got out. They had spotted a German submarine, and they had dropped, that ship was able to drop one of those depth down deep. And that was seemingly, they either got them, we never knew. You didn't really know what was going on. We landed at Glasgow, Scotland, and Wood said to me, they asked for volunteers to unload 5,000 duffel bags. Now the duffel bag was the big bag that had all of your belongings in it. He said, let's get out of this, off this ship ahead of time. And we did. I don't know how many they had, but I'll tell you, you just threw the duffel bags up on a walkway, and they hauled them away. You know, all of them is labeled. I have a duffel bag upstairs that was your suitcase, all you there. We got on a train in Glasgow, Scotland, went down across we passed through London, incidentally. So I've been to London, but I didn't see it. And we went to Southampton. Southampton is shown on the map that I was showing you a while ago. And we boarded a ship, I don't know, it would carry a few thousand, I suppose, and crossed the channel. But when we get to the French side of the channel, we have to get off. We went over the side of the ship in a net, and you may have seen it in the movies, climbing down in the net into a landing barge. The landing barge would run up onto the shore as close as it would until it hit. Then they'd drop the end of the landing barge down, and you waded ashore, which we did. We waded ashore. But now D-Day had long passed. We landed at Le Havre, and Le Havre had been bombed. You'll have to stop and think. The Germans took Le Havre and bombed it and destroyed almost every building. So they're in possession of it. Along comes the British and the American, and they bomb it and shell it again to get the Germans out of there. So there's no city left. They had taken a bulldozer, and there's no streets, but what was covered, they had taken a bulldozer and made a single path up through the debris so that we could, no particular formation at that time, you were just moving on. The only people you would see was some elderly people, very elderly people, old, probably 60 and 70 years old, and children. Children was along the path begging for food, begging for candy or chewing gum that you had. So we actually, as we moved up to the front, I tell my grandchildren and people that I've told the story to, I walked across France. I rode on a train across Germany. And I remember Adam, my second boy, saying, "Granddad, are you sure you're not mixed up on that?" I remember very well. I said, "Adam, we walked across France. There's no railroads left." I rode across Germany from the time we entered Germany. That chart that I had, I can't remember the city, until we got nearly to Nuremberg by train. Here's what happened. When the Germans, you have to understand what the Germans were doing. The Germans, which were holding Germany, did not have their country destroyed yet. So they destroyed everything in France. Buildings, railroad lines and everything. Along comes the Americans who crossed France. The Germans were in France. They drive the Germans out of France back into Germany. Then the Americans ends up taking Germany. But the Americans under Eisenhower, they did not bomb the railroad. The engineers, some of it was torn up, but not much of it. As the engineers, which is another group, were ahead of us, we would stop occasionally while they repaired the track. But you could see bomb craters on each side of the track. They meant to miss, this is an American doing this, they meant to miss the track so they would have it when they got it. It's pretty hard to understand. I lost track of my buddy in about 4 or 5 days after it took a long time to move us up across France, because we walked or marched, but not in formation. And I recall that it rained, and they did manage to keep the supply food up to you pretty well, but most of it was what they called K rations. It was all, of course you were carrying your mess kit with you, but it was going to be a long time till you had anything warm to put into that. The war ended, and when the war ended, I moved back to my first move from Frankfurt. My first move was to Bamberg. Bamberg, I was put to work as a clerk. Now, I'd been in the infantry. I was put to work as a clerk working on